Good morning, all. It is the morning, actually, it's almost noon now, of the 9th of January, 2024. I'm in my little shed here with the gravel floor, which isn't flooded right now. Today is a rainy day, and my lake outside is going to be much larger by the end of this storm, which isn't going to happen until after midnight tonight. But it's warm. Temperature's supposed to get into the upper 50s today, so it's comfortable. Although I do have my little heater going in here, and yes, it is ventilated too. It's a little propane heater. Um, so today is the ideal opportunity for me to finally rebuild my carburetor. And like I said at the end of yesterday's video, that's pretty much the last major thing that I need to do before I can actually attempt to start the car, other than, hooking up some more wiring and hoses and basic things like that. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before or not, but I will not be using the gas tank in the car right away. I first need to remove it, clean it, make sure it doesn't leak, put new seals in, new fuel sending unit, all that stuff before I'll trust the gas tank. So I'll be using a portable container strapped to the fender of the car with some hoses securely attached to it as my source of fuel for my initial attempts at starting the car anyway. Um, Picked up my base gaskets this morning from Advanced Auto Parts. They were kind of pricey, um, but that's the nature of the beast, I guess. So now I can put my spacer on the car once the weather dries up and I have another opportunity to work outside, which probably won't happen for a few days. Take a while for the ground to dry up a little bit. Plus, I have to work the next 2 days. Next week's going to be bitterly cold, like single digit temperatures, which I'm not going to work in that kind of cold, even with boots on and whatnot. So my ability to work in my car will be curtailed a bit in the next week or two, but one day at a time. And today should be a good day to get this carburetor rebuilt. I'll take snippets throughout the day as I'm disassembling it, but basically it's just disassembly, and I've already taken a bunch of pictures, still photos with my phone to make sure I have reminders of how to put things back together. But basically, just take it all apart, soak the parts in my carburetor parts cleaner, which the handle just came off. But anyway, carburetor parts cleaner, um, and then just put it all back together. And there's an instruction booklet in here, and I have access to an online manual, which reminds me I meant to bring my iPad out here so I could actually follow along with that, but may go back in later to get that. So I think that was it for now. I'm going to go ahead and get started on this little project. All right, disassembly is moving right along. I'm trying to be ultra careful. There's so many small parts. Ziploc bags, everything in this little Ziploc bag is everything to do with the choke. Down there is just some loose fittings and whatnot. Right here are all my tiny little clips that are retaining clips. I don't even know what you call them exactly. I think 3 of them are the same size, but one's a little bit bigger. So far I haven't lost any. I am following my instructions on my iPad here. I did bring that out here. Comes in real handy to just, follow along. This is something that Brian sent me a link to. Just generic instructions on, an orderly way of doing this, so I'm just following that. So right now I've come to the point of removing the air horn. The top part, everything has been disconnected, and you can see here the floats hanging down and the plunger right there, and so on and so forth. Doesn't look too bad inside, a little bit dirty, but not bad. Brian says he had been in this before to clean it up and whatnot. So I'll be definitely dipping everything I can into my parts cleaner. So far, no problems. I think getting it apart is probably not going to be that difficult. Getting everything back together, that's where the challenge is probably going to come in, but so far, so good. Here I'm just documenting for myself, so for reassembly. Some of the screws under here that hold this air horn down are longer than the others, so I'm just kind of slowly spinning it around here so I can get a visual of which ones are longer, like this one right here. Definitely longer than the others. And this one here is probably the longest one of all. It's kind of an oddball size, so I'm just doing this for reassembly purposes, and I'll take some still shots as well. Okay. All right, I'm still grumbling about this carburetor kit that I got. It's still bothering me. For instance, this gasket here at the bottom of the air horn that I'm about to take off, I don't have an exact match on the replacement. It's kind of weird because it seems like parts of one gasket are real close, and then, but not exactly, and then a different gasket has other parts that are closer, but not all of it. So it's like, oh man, why didn't they get me the right freaking kit? So I'm still a little worried. I mean, I can make this work. Like this one, I don't know, even this one's off a bit. I was hoping not to have to call those people that sold me this, but the more I fiddle with this, the more I think I'm going to have to give them a call, because there are just so many differences here. Not being a carburetor expert, I just don't know. Maybe this is the one I can use. It's probably the closest, except for this little piece right here. This is driving me crazy. I don't think I've had this problem before. The last time I rebuilt one of these, I don't remember having that issue, and I don't know how critical it is that everything matches up with the old gasket the same way. So, I mean, I might be able to just throw this one on there and it'd be fine. And everything is close, but not exact. So I may have to take an X-Acto knife to carve out some pieces so that it matches this one better. That might be my best guess, or my best option. I don't know, just really disappointed about this whole thing with this repair kit. But I'll keep on going on, see where it becomes a showstopper. Right now, I don't think I have a showstopper just yet. Okay, just to be fair, maybe it's just my inexperience, because now that I re-looked at one of the gaskets, all of a sudden I find one that actually does look like it belongs there. It's not a perfect match, like right here. There's a difference between that one and that gasket. And I don't know how critical that difference is. I'll have to look at that a little closer, because that's the same on both sides. But otherwise, that gasket does fit. Everywhere else, it's just right here, it's a little different. And I just don't know if that's going to be a problem or not. Maybe once I get this gasket off and I see what's underneath it, maybe it won't end up being a problem. Okay, so I flipped to the other part of the carburetor and put that same gasket on here, and it looks like it fits this part well, and it looks like those holes, even though they're a little bit different than these over here, it does not appear, as far as I can tell, that's really going to be a problem. It's a design change, and maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's an improvement. I don't know, but I don't think it's enough to stop me from using it. So, moving on. Disassembly is continuing. I just took these pieces off here. I'm not going to try and name them. I don't have them memorized. I'm just following the directions in the book. These pieces are coming out next, and this. And again, I'm trying to keep things organized, putting them in Ziploc bags, all that kind of stuff. So, no major issues yet. I don't know how many of these pieces have replacement parts. I do see that. That's good. Primary dash pod, or whatever you call that. Secondary, though, I don't see one in there, which I think this needs to be replaced. So that's going to be interesting. This kit is not very complete from the looks of it. I've disassembled the carburetor about as far as I can go, and with my brute force approach, probably not the best person to be trying to rebuild a carburetor, but I did get 5 out of the 6 metering jets out. I couldn't get this last one out. It kind of chipped on me on the edge just a little bit, so I can't get it out. I'm just going to leave it there. Maybe I would have been better off leaving them all in, but the instructions did say to remove them. And I was looking for this ball check, and I didn't realize that the primary jet here has the ball built into it. So, and I've got them in order here of the way they came out. So I'll make sure I put them back the same way, because I do have different sizes to them. I also tried to get this fitting out here, this vacuum fitting, but it started to deform. It's so soft, so I gave up trying to get that out. Then when I tried to put my little adapter back in there, it wouldn't go in, so I had to squeeze it with some vice grips the other direction to get it to the point where I could screw that back in. So that's staying on there permanently. So I'm just going to soak this stuff in cleaner. I already soaked the air horn in cleaner. It's over here, drying now, and I do have an air gun here available with my pancake compressor to dry it thoroughly, so I'll do that here in a few minutes, but it came out pretty good. Also, I like that everything moves a lot freer now. It was pretty sticky before, so now the choke horn moves, choke valve moves more easily like it should. And I've got a parts basket in there right now. It's probably about time to take those out. And got various sets of parts in here I'm going to try and clean. I think it'll be okay to soak these the way they are, and so on and so forth. Just trying to keep things segregated so I don't lose track of screws and stuff that go with them. So I'll soak each one individually in that little parts basket that's down there. The only thing I'm disappointed about so far is that it doesn't have the auxiliary dash pod. I think that's what that's called, that auxiliary pump on the second side, so I'm going to be forced to reuse that. I'm not going to wait around and order one and, you know, delay myself on getting this thing back together. I figure if they don't include it, it must not be that important, and it does seem to fit okay in the bore still. So, I mean, worst case scenario, if the carburetor doesn't end up working out right, I can always replace it with another one. But I would prefer to rebuild it if I can and save the money on getting a replacement. But that's always a viable option if need be. This gasket here I couldn't really get out, and I don't want to scratch the surface. I'm hoping the cleaner will help loosen it and get it off, soak it off. So, yeah, there's nothing else to be disassembled, nothing else to be taken off. All the side levers and stuff don't need to come off. They'll soak clean in the dip. And I probably do need to use some of these cleaners here in the passages, but I'm going to soak things first before I run these through any passages. I don't even know if there's any passages like that on the air horn. I guess I do see a little bit, but they're pretty big and they're clean, so I don't have to worry about those. Although, yeah, maybe I'll use my tools over there to clean some of that after I blow it with air. So, let's see what we got here in this little parts basket. Alright, that looks like it's coming pretty clean. Let that drip over here for a few minutes. Then I'm going to dip this in there, 1/2 of it, or as much of it as I can get in here at one time. I had to transfer the cleaner to a bigger container because that little 1/2 gallon or 3/4 gallon can wasn't big enough to hold my carburetor pieces. So we'll let that soak for a while and I'll continue on. Now that everything is disassembled, I think the hardest part about this carburetor job is just waiting, because you have to let the chemical dip do its thing. You got to wait at least 15 minutes. At least. That's a minimum of 15 minutes, and the longer the better, up to a point. You don't need to leave it in there excessively long, but probably half an hour is better than 15 minutes, which is what I've been doing, especially for the main parts of the carburetor. Smaller parts like this, well, I guess I'll let them soak for at least 15 minutes, but I'm making it take longer too because I'm only soaking parts that belong together. I don't want to mix screws, different types of screws, you know, with other parts. So I'm trying to keep all this organized and together. It just means it takes longer, and that's okay. It can take longer. Pretty sure the floats are fine. They don't have any liquid in them. Although not long the carburetor's been out of use, but I will test them. I'll dip them in some kind of liquid to make sure they're not leaking, but I'm pretty sure they're fine. That would be a showstopper if they were leaking. But anyway, I haven't run into any major problems other than that one jet I couldn't get out. But I don't think I hurt it enough where it can't be used. So, and these are the parts that have been cleaned and dried, wiped off, whatever. I still haven't actually used these yet. I really haven't seen the need to. Maybe in other parts I will, but my little compressor here comes in handy for doing drying and whatnot. So it'll be fun when it comes time to reassemble. That may be a little while yet. Meanwhile, the weather outside is not good. You can see the water's already filling up the floor in here in my shed. And if you push the door open at all, you can see how much water's out here. So yeah, not a good day to be outside. At least it's warm. It's the only good thing about it, but the wind's picking up now too. Anyway, like I said, I'm doing a lot of waiting right now while parts soak, and eventually I'll start reassembly. I do have a bit of a mystery that I'm trying to solve. This little filter screen fell out. I don't even know where it was. I didn't see it when it came out. I just noticed it laying on the table after I was starting disassembly. The only place I think it could possibly go would be right here in the inlet tube. And it does fit this part here pretty handily. It fits right in there like that. Problem is, it's not very long and it doesn't reach all the way to the bottom of the bore where this screws in. So I would imagine when the fuel comes in, it just pushes it right off and it just sits in there, assuming it's even the right piece to go in there. I'm not even sure. So I'm debating whether I should even use it. When I set it in here like this, it's inside there now, it's loose, but I honestly don't know if I'm supposed to be using it or not. It's really weird. So I'll have to make a call on that, see if I can see a reference to that little screen in the user manual or rebuild manual. Now you can see what I'm dealing with in my shed here as I work. Luckily, it's not really cold; it's just wet. But I'm just about done cleaning parts now. I've got one batch in the dip right now, the chemical dip, and one more batch of stuff here, the choke stuff that I want to soak in there. And I've got a pile of stuff over here that's been cleaned and dried, and I have been using my little pipe cleaner things to go through small passages and whatnot. So things are moving along, trying to stay organized. Instead of putting things back in plastic baggies, I left them out so they could finish drying, and I just kind of segregating things, keeping them in little piles where they belong together. So when I start reassembling, it'll be with the main body right there. So hopefully that will be dry enough to start putting things back together. I did a fairly aggressive job of cleaning inside the bowls, the fuel bowls and whatnot. Um, so I think we'll be all right. So far, things are going okay. My only real disappointment, as I already mentioned, was the lack of a secondary dash pot in the kit, but that's okay. I'll live with the one I have. I also read in the instruction manual that it's better to maintain the float orientation, put it back in the same bowl it came out from, since they have sensitive adjustments on them and whatnot. So I labeled one so I could remember which side it came out of. Now the kit does have new valves in it, those little tiny things right there. They are in the kits, and they do say that they need to be replaced, so I will replace those, of course. So making good progress. My intention is to finish this today. Since it doesn't really matter about daylight, since I have lights in my shed here, I can keep working until I'm actually done. Per instructions in the manual here, the rebuild manual, the very first part that goes back together are the auxiliary valves. So they only fit one way, and that's not it. Like that. That's not it. That. Okay. Nope, that's not it either. Not demonstrating too well here. This is one of those things that only fits one way, and I can't seem to figure out. There we go. I think that's how it's supposed to look. And they look different than those auxiliary valves, at least on the edges there, but that's all these different designs, I guess. So, okay. So anyway, first step, just sharing that, and then I'm going to continue reassembly according to the little booklet I have there. Making pretty good progress. This is the main part of the carburetor that's mostly reassembled now. New plunger here, reusing the old one there. I was surprised that this kit didn't come apparently with these new needle valves for the floats. It says in the manual that I'm following that they should always be replaced, but this kit didn't have them. So again, a little disappointing. But looking at these closely, they appear to be undamaged. So I've got no choice anyway. I have to reuse them. So working on the floats right now in the air horn assembly. Okay, correction. I guess I just read it wrong. I thought it said new needles, but it doesn't. The only thing that's new are the gaskets. So I guess we're okay. So working on the floats. All right, the floats are reinstalled now. They've got these measurements in here and whatnot, and this is what I'm given in the kit to use. It's like, I'm not messing with that. Trying to make adjustments here. My reasoning is that, as far as I know, the carburetor was just fine before. Brian drove the car with this carburetor, so I'm not going to mess with the float adjustments. Chances are good that I would just mess things up. So whatever they had before, that's what they got now. Okay, this is major progress in this part of the assembly because now the air horn is going to go back on top of the main carburetor body there. The tricky part is getting this plunger through the hole over here because it's got that spring underneath that's trying to push it out. So that's the only tricky part. And of course, you don't want to damage the floats or anything while you're lowering them into their spots there. So that's what I'm working on right now. All right, folks, this was a fun day. I finished it. I'm done. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? that carburetor is ready to be installed. Oops, and here I am showing off, and I forgot to put the AC solenoid back in that hole. I should just plug it up. If I can find a screw that goes in there, I'll just put a screw in there. Okay, I almost finished. I got a little too excited there, but so yeah, she looks good. The choke is set and adjusted, so that's why the choke plate is closed. Everything moves freely. It's nice and clean. So I'm pretty excited. Wasn't sure I was going to make it with this flood we're having today and the storm and wind, but I'm so glad to be done with this. I am waiting on a couple things. One thing the kit did have, which was correct, was the little gasket there for the air cleaner. There really weren't that many gaskets anyway, so I guess as much as I complained about that kit, it had what I needed. It had the parts that were essential to do this, so it's done. One thing I'm waiting on is the steel line that goes here in the input for the gas line. I ordered one from Intube, I think it's called, and it hasn't shown up yet. Not that it matters right now because it's going to be probably several days before I'll be able to work on the car again, especially after this deluge. The backyard is a lake. I don't remember seeing it this bad in a long time. So wonder why the choke just stuck open. Anyway, that's kind of weird. But anyway, I am happy. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's working like it's supposed to. So successfully rebuilt the carburetor. Whether it actually makes the engine start, well, we'll test that theory out soon enough. As soon as I have an opportunity, I will definitely get it on the car and get going on that. So I'm signing off for today. Y'all have a good evening. I think, yeah, I'm done.